Kim Godwin, the first Black woman to run a broadcast TV news division, is leaving ABC News after 3 years. The Walt Disney Co-owned network announced Godwin's departure Sunday. Godwin joined ABC in May 2021 from CBS News, where she was an executive vice president and oversaw its diversity efforts. Here's a part of Godwin's statement about her retirement from broadcast news. Quote, I understand and appreciated the profound significance of being the first Black woman to lead a national broadcast news network when I accepted the role as president of ABC News a little over 3 years ago. It's both a privilege and a debt to those who chipped away before me to lead a team whose brand is synonymous with trust, integrity, and a dogged determination to be the best in the business, unquote. Godwin's sudden exit came after reports that Debra OConnell, the Disney veteran hired in February to oversee ABC News, was conducting a review of Godwin's performance and had voiced dissatisfaction in private conversations with the network's state of affairs. Kevin, something feels, so when I read Godwin's statement, I feel like she could have said anything about her time there, but she specifically mentioned being a Black woman. And then, we're talking about 3 years ago, we're still in kind of the quote unquote summer of racial reckoning, or the summer after the summer of racial reckoning. And people are talking about all of these, diversity things we're going to do. We're going to pledge this, we're going to pledge that. And now we're in 2024 and we're experiencing what many of us are calling diversity fatigue. And so I don't know, Ms. Godwin, but I kind of feel like her putting that out there was saying that there's another there, and another layer that she wasn't going to. How did you read that statement?
Yeah, I'm with you. It does seem like there might be something else going on beneath the surface. Like you said, I don't know Kim Godwin. I don't, have no affiliation with ABC. I've never spoken to anyone, as far as I know, about Kim Godwin. So, I can't comment on the specifics of what actually happened under her tenure or the circumstances that led to this. I read a statement from the National Association of Black Journalists, the NABJ, that accused a lot of Godwin's detractors of leveling racially motivated attacks and whatnot. And so I encourage everyone to read that statement because I think it makes a lot of good points. Other than that, I don't have a ton to say about Kim Godwin in particular, other than that she's a trailblazer, and no one can take that away from her. I do want to say one thing. I want to talk a little bit about sort of the importance of power and ownership in corporate America. I think a lot of times we celebrate when we see Black faces get appointed to high places. Oftentimes, those are within existing institutions. And I think that's great. I may have posted about Kim Godwin when she was named the head of ABC News. I'm sure a lot of folks in our community celebrated that. But we know that many times, and you pointed to the historical piece of when she was appointed to her position, a lot of companies might put us in high places without giving us the support that we need. And so I'm reminded of a universal truth, which to me is that there is no true comfort without control. And when I say control, I mean ownership or equity. Take sports, for example, because this is, entertainment, sports, news, it's all sort of the same realm. We talk a lot about we need more Black coaches. We need more Black team presidents. We need more Black general managers. And we do. I'm all for that. What I think we don't talk enough about, for example, is that we need more Black owners. Why? Because owners can hire and fire. Art Rooney of the Steelers can wake up tomorrow and fire Mike Tomlin, Black coach, if he wants to, but nobody's going to fire Art Rooney. They can't. You can be the most senior person in a company or a business, but if you don't have that controlling status, if you're not the controlling board member or chairperson, your head could roll tomorrow. And in fact, some of the same people who celebrated you on your rise will be the very first to celebrate you on your fall. And so I applaud Roland and his whole team for what they've built at the Black Star Network, because nobody can take that away from him. So I want to say to the young people, right, who are out there, aspire to own, aspire to produce, aspire to hire. And that way you can never be fired.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm so glad you mentioned NABJ. Is pulling up their statement right now. NABJ stands firmly behind ABC News President Kim Godwin. We are concerned over recent media reports that seem to be written with the intention of undermining the leadership of the first Black woman to take the helm of a global news organization. Many of the latest articles surrounding her leadership fail to demonstrate basic journalism by providing alternative viewpoints. There seems to be an intentionality to cite anonymous sources as Godwin's detractors, coupled with the use of derogatory or stereotypical terms to describe her. Meanwhile, these reports are totally ignoring sources and facts that speak to Godwin having significant support inside the organization. Those supporters have told NABJ that they see the attacks perpetrated through media reports as quote-unquote racially motivated or in reaction to her not being in what some in the industry call the quote-unquote good old boy network of players. NABJ is extremely disappointed to see such a reckless, unbalanced, and unfair style of reporting as demonstrated in other stories that do not have alternative viewpoints and, in some cases, have racially insensitive language. Unlike a recent Wall Street Journal article, the Journal provided differing viewpoints with more perspective and fairness regarding Godwin's performance and relationship with staff. Because of Godwin's demonstrated and long commitment to NABJ, its membership, and the journalism industry as a whole, NABJ will not be silent about what we believe is unfair treatment, nor will we stand idly by and watch the violation of basic journalism principles used to diminish such an historic moment for Black women in news leadership. We will be meeting with ABC News and Disney executives to talk about a path forward. Dr. Malveaux, my mom is watching Dr. Ngalela Wakabongo. Shout out to you, Mom. And just watching her trajectory in the spaces that she was in, being at Harvard, Boston College, all of these different spaces, my siblings and I came to pick up on certain language in terms of how people would talk about her. When I'm reading the statements about Miss Godwin, again, someone I don't know, I see the triggers that make me think she's being treated like how I saw my mom, like how I've heard so many stories talked about you, you talking about your life, and even what's talking about here in this NABJ statement, it's almost like she's being looked at as an angry Black woman who they feel like they needed to rein in. How do you see this?
Well, obviously, she called out being a Black woman, and we know that the amount of misogyny that Black women are experiencing these days is just extreme. I mean, literally extreme. We see it with the vice president who, one of those little, airheaded white women wrote an article in the Post talking about she needs to step down so Biden can win. That's nonsense. And I mean, hell, we had Dan Quayle who didn't have two brains. Two brain cells in his head. And no one ever said that about him. But Kamala Harris, and I can call her Kamala, I know her from San Francisco. She's good people. She's brilliant. Why is she getting this kind of hate? Marilyn Mosby did something not too bright, but everybody does it. She lied on a mortgage application. She's faced up to 40 years in jail for lying on a mortgage. If everybody who lied on a mortgage application, I can say I did because the statute of limitations is over. If everybody who did that had to go to jail, there would be no room in jail. And we can go down the list. We can talk about Dawn Staley, the sister who coached an amazing team, but Lil Becky gets all the attention, not the people who won. Who won? And so when we look at this, they're just by nature, Omekongo, and you know this, by nature, nobody wants to report to a Black woman. Mm-hmm. Their racism and their sexism collide, and they just mad. And then, the white boys who have to report to the Black woman, they ready to fight. They're like, And so they drop these things, angry Black woman. And then the ultimate insult was they put this woman over her in charge of news operations. So that's effectively a demotion. And she wasn't having it, and she should not have had it, and it should not have happened. So the NABJ statement is a very important statement, and it really says it all in terms of calling out all these anonymous sources. Anonymous source means you made it up. That's what it really means. You took your biases and you put them in an anonymous person's mouth who we could never find because they don't exist. And I mean, right on to the sister. She held it up as long as she could. And her exit was very dignified. But when you read between the lines, she ain't happy. Mm-hmm. They messed with her. And she, I'm sure she got paid, and I'm happy for that. I'm sure there was some kind of NDA that she had to sign, and that's how it goes. But she is a trailblazer. She did important work. And the fact is that as these walls come tumbling down, you have devils who want to build them back up. So, we saw it. We just talked about Ole Miss. We talk about, when we're, you and I are usually the Monday crew, we see stuff after stuff after stuff. And it's like, this is how it is. So we applaud the sister, but this just lets us know that the struggle continues. And, for all its so-called liberalism, journalism is not liberal at all. Journalism is about maintaining the status quo. So when you ever put someone who's a part of a marginalized population in a power position, the status quo is going to be threatened. And unless you dot all the I's, cross all the T's, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and you and I've lived it. Unless you do all that and, kiss an appropriate amount of butt, a bunch of things are going to happen. And here we see it. And so it's a tragedy on one hand, it's a lesson on the other, and it is a call to action.
And speaking of a call to action, Gavin, in your experience in journalism and these types of statements that are coming out, do you feel, and of course with also the DEI backlash, and some people saying now DEI stands for didn't earn it and the like, do you see more situations like this coming down the pike where you're going to see either more Black people and trailblazers let go, or some saying basically I've had enough based on what they're dealing with? What do you see is going to be going down as the trend?
So I think definitely, it'll be different for every individual person. I wouldn't be surprised if these trends continue. I want to build off something that Dr. Malveaux said, which is that she harkened back to what we talked about at Ole Miss, right? And I think I talked earlier about how, we see this sort of Ole Miss, the MAGA mob mentality. The thing is, those people that we saw, the counter protesters holding up their Trump flags and being racist, doing their racist thing on camera, those same people are going to go fill those very same jobs in corporate America, in newsrooms, in boardrooms, in sports locker rooms, you name it. And we've seen time and time again on both sides of the aisle, folks who are in power, we learned that they wore blackface or they, did something else very racist back in their past. And we're like, oh, no way. How could this have happened? But I think every time it serves to remind us that we might see those people in that video and associate them with a certain type of, Charlottesville, good people on both sides kind of situation, while forgetting that those same people hold power in spaces that are white collar, that are professional, spaces that we all work in. And so it should come as no surprise when we hear stories come out about the racism, or when we experience ourselves the racism in these very different spaces, in different spaces across corporate America. It's because those very same people are able to skirt by, avoid any sort of sanction, avoid any sort of disciplinary action, and end up in positions where they can make life hell for Black people.
Mm-hmm. That is so powerful. That is so powerful. And I'm so glad that you both brought up the comments that you did. And I'm also glad that we have the Black Star Network here, as well as such a reputable organization like NABJ that's going to stand with our family in the industry who are dealing with this, so that people can know that they're not alone. And also that call to basic journalistic practices, which is something that is also lacking today. So this is also something that we are going to be keeping an eye on here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.